welcome to Cavan TV's News and Views. Well, this evening I am in Cavan Crystal Hotel, and it's the first day of a 3-day event of the Veteran Car Club, the Irish section. It's the first day, the registration evening of a fantastic trip. Now, to tell me all about that trip, all the way from Wicklow, is Laurence Roe, who is one of the organisers of this event. I am amazed. Go on, Laurence. Tell me all about it from the start to the beginning. Tell me all about this VCC, as it's called.
VCC. We're the Irish section of the Veteran Car Club, which is a UK club. It's in fact the oldest car club in the world. And we're the Irish section, and each year we run a 4-day event for our cars, and we pick a different county each year. And this year we're in Cavan, delighted to be in Cavan for 4 days.
Welcome to Cavan.
Thank you. Now, these cars, the criteria for the cars is they all have to be manufactured before the 1st of January 1990. So that actually makes them all over 104 years old. So we have about 36 entries, including one steam car, which is very interesting. And we're looking forward to our 4 days here. So we hope tomorrow we're heading off about 10:30 in the morning, and we're heading to Killashandra. We have coffee in Killashandra, and then we're going to take a drive through Belturbet into Castle Sanderson, around Castle Sanderson, and then to Ballyhaise Agricultural College. And we're having lunch there, and then coming back through Red Hills and into Butler's Bridge.
Yes.
So that's about 100 kilometres, and we tend to try and do 100 kilometres each day. Friday then we head towards Bailieborough, King's Court, and then after King's Court we head back through Shercock, Cootail, I'm trying to remember the names, and into Stradoon.
You're doing well, yeah.
Thank you. And then the final day we will drive down to Crover House for the golf club for coffee, and then on to via Oldcastle on to Cavan County Museum in Ballygymstock.
You will love that. That's
Yeah,
most interesting.
I've been there a few times. It's really interesting. So we're having lunch there, and then we're heading back, and our final stop is at the Tank Bar in Carrickboy, which I believe is in the middle of nowhere. So that's our final one.
It's a rare spot.
I believe it is.
You'll be welcome.
Looking forward to it.
I was reading your brochure that you have there, and I saw some of the most interesting rules and regulations that you have for your rally, as you should put it. You cannot, now it's given in miles and kilometres, you cannot drive over 15 miles.
True, yeah. You've got to bear in mind these cars.
In speed.
These cars are all over 100 years old. So back in those days, in the early 1900s, the brakes on cars wouldn't have been good, the suspensions wouldn't have been great. So if we see like a ramp before a school or in a village, we just have to warn everybody there's a ramp coming up. So and the steering, I mean, they're all over 100 years old. A lot of them would be very original. So we have to take care and make sure they don't go too fast. Also, we're going on some R routes, so we just want to make sure cars don't go on convoy.
No convoy, because you'll hold the traffic up everywhere, and that would not be very well.
No, and we're very conscious of that, and I know the guards have been great to us. They give us great support.
I suppose you have to get special places to pull in and park as well. You have to have an agreed parking.
True, yeah. Places. We tend to drive probably no more than about 15, 20 kilometres, say 15 miles, and then we have a stop for our coffee and let people catch up on that. And so it's a social event, it's a fun event, and this year we have about, of the 36 cars we have about almost 20 from the UK. We've run one from the United States, and it's great to welcome those people.
We're going to have a look at those cars later, don't worry.
Indeed, So it's great to bring those people to Ireland, whatever county it is. This year it's Cavan, and to show them around Cavan and show off our counties and our country. And Cavan, of course, with its 365 lakes, is
a
something.
few extra in the wet weather. So it's great. Thank you for picking Cavan this year, and I hope the weather stays nice and dry, and you will enjoy it. Of course, like everybody else, he had a little bit of a rest with COVID.
Yes.
So it's great. A little bit of organisation, I would say, to get the cars back out and on the road again.
Yeah, we had actually booked Cavan for 2020, and we obviously had to cancel it. But I must say the Cavan Crystal Hotel have been really great to us, and they have honoured all the commitments we made back then. So thank you to them.
Well, you're very welcome, Laurence.
Thank you
First
very
of all,
much.
welcome, and thank you for picking Cavan. I hope you have a great trip around Cavan, and I'm just absolutely dying to have a look at those cars.
Great. You're more than welcome. Come out and we'll have a look.
Thank
you. Yeah.
Now we're going to have a look at some of these fabulous over 100-year cars. Laurence, you were telling me that some of the cars actually drove from England to get to here today.
That's correct. We have two cars. One car drove from Bournemouth to here via Holyhead, and another car came from the Birmingham area and it drove here. And the majority of them would have come in trailers because it's a long distance. But interestingly enough, this car was here at our run in Limerick a couple of years ago, and it drove from the Manchester area to Limerick, all around our routes and then back home again.
That's some sturdy car.
It's quite amazing. This is a 1914 Derrick,
it's got that on its badge. It's got Paris on its badge.
Yes, it's French. Derrick would have been a French model, and you can see it's quite original. It's probably nearly original paintwork, but it'll be very original, interesting car.
Wow, 100 years old.
That'll be
amazing stuff. So looking down, we see, was talking earlier to Jude, and he's explaining that Henry Ford made the Thin Lizzy.
That's right.
That's not an Irish band, by the way. It was one of the original cars, and made those cars more affordable to people who wanted to drive cars. They made an edition of how many?
They made 14 million cars, and this is a very good example of an early Model T Ford. They started to make them at about 1909 up until the mid-20s. And interestingly enough, when Ford built the factory in Cork, they built Model T Fords there and Model T tractors, and that was the first Ford factory outside the United States. It was actually in Cork. But this is what's known as a brass radiator. In the 1916, 17, 18, they painted the radiator black, and the famous saying is Henry Ford said you can have whatever colour you want as long as it's black. Hence the Model T Ford. But this is an early one, lovely example, and that's also from the UK.
Yeah, and that one actually has got a back seat in it as well. So
it has.
Don't. That one has a passenger seat.
This would be the basic sort of touring model. There were two front seats.
Well, I asked Jude before, what section of the society bought these cars back in those days?
These would have been the mass-produced cheap car of the day, and this would have really, most Americans would have learned how to drive in a Model T Ford.
Right.
And
so it was affordable.
Very affordable.
Henry
Very affordable
Ford,
car.
Affordable,
yeah. And they were flimsy, but the material that was in them was the best quality material, and they're quite reliable and they're quite good. Quite a good car.
And I can see that the steering wheel is on the left
side. Because
it was made. That must be an American one.
Yeah, that could be an American import. But then some of the cars that came to Ireland back in the early days would have been left-hand drive. But interestingly enough, all the very early European cars were actually right-hand drive, and despite the fact they drove on the right-hand side of the road. And one of the reasons some people say is that when the horse and carriage was there, the driver of the horse always sat in the right-hand seat because he was right-handed and he had a whip. And when he put the whip back, if he sat in the left seat, it would knock the ladies' hats off in the back. So that's why, that's one of the stories why most early cars are right-hand drive.
Right, okay. So moving down now, this is in great contrast to the Ford Thin Lizzy. This is a fabulous car as well.
This is a Talbot. It's a 1910 Talbot, and
it's made in America as well.
No, that would have been a French car, and then there were English Talbots.
At the badge, sorry.
Were there. Now, a lot of brass on these cars, which
high maintenance.
Very high maintenance, and a lot of the European cars would have had a lot of brass on them, as against the American cars would have tended to be more just painted, and the American cars were built to just do long distance.
I can see the subtle difference. Painted versus lots more brass.
And the lights here, it's got modern lights on it, but the brass lights would be carbide lights. They would work with carbide crystals. There's a crystal container with water, and the water, you turn the water on, it drips down on the crystals, creates gas, carbide gas, and then you light the lights.
And of course, they all have the old starting handles, which I remember cars been started by that myself some years ago.
Right, yes.
But like, obviously, they don't have keys, do they?
No, they don't have keys.
You don't say, where's the keys in my car? You say, where's the handle?
That's it. And these early ones would not have had starters because electricity in cars didn't come in until about 1914, 15. So all cars pre that would have been a swing start or a push.
Oh, yeah, pushing the cars.
So,
amazing stuff.
So,
look at the detail on the window there, the wooden frame on the window, and actually it opens as well by the looks of things.
Yes,
as well.
it will come
Bit
down.
of airflow.
Again,
amazing
we haven't
stuff.
any examples here, but a lot of the cars pre-1910ish wouldn't have had windscreens at all.
Right.
And you just had to wear proper clothing, and people did in those days.
Actually, just to give you a bit of brief history, we have a man in Cavan called Eugene Markey, and he lives over near Coot Hill, and an amazing man. And it's a pity you didn't know about it in time. He has got some wonderful restored cars in his garage, and we've done items on his garage, and we've sat in cars, and I've sat in cars. I sat in the car, and I remember one distinctly he was telling me about, and it's the car with the suicide doors.
Yes.
Apparently, when you're flying along, the door could fling open and you could just fall out of the car.
Yes.
It made some amazing things in
yeah,
those
it's
days.
when the doors open out this
That
way
way.
rather than that way. Suicide doors.
Yeah. So moving along now, and also you've got what kind of a car?
We have a steam car, and I think it's the first time we've had a steam car in our events. It's 1903, and it's somewhere around. It's still on a trailer, I think, but that'll have it steam up in the morning, and it'll be steaming along. So
what do you do? How do you steam it up?
It's got a boiler.
I was going to say boil the kettle.
It's got a big boiler, and it'll work on you. It's got a constant flame. It's lit with methylated spirits, and then it keeps going with paraffin or kerosene, and that keeps the boiler going. And then you fill up with water a couple of times during the day.
Right, so is that easier or harder on fuel?
It uses a good bit of fuel, believe you me, but it's interesting to see it, and it runs very quietly. And
so these 4 cars that we've seen there have all travelled here today.
Yes, this is another Talbot, a 1914 Talbot, and that's travelled from the UK. As well, we have about, as I mentioned earlier, we have about 22 cars from the UK, and the rest are from Ireland, from all over Ireland, from the west, southwest Cork, Waterford.
So tell me the housekeeping of these kinds of cars, Laurence. Can you get veteran insurance? Do you have to tax them?
Yes.
I know they obviously are a very expensive hobby to have because they're high maintenance, let's face it. But is the hobby, when you have them on the road, are they expensive to insure and tax? Or do you have to tax them?
Yes, you have to tax them, and it's an nominal €56 in Ireland to tax the cars.
That's not too
insurance,
bad.
Most people have done a deal with their insurance company. They're only out a couple of days in the year. They do
no
more than 300 or 400 miles a year. So the insurance companies take that into account. So they all would be insured, obviously.
Yeah, it's very unlikely to get into an accident in one of those
cars.
cars.
Other maintenance, there's general maintenance, sort of tires and just keeping everything ticking over, oil and that. And most people who are in these cars would do a lot of that themselves, and they can tinker around with them.
So if somebody out there was watching this and saying, my goodness, I always wanted a car like this, how would somebody who has a great interest and would love to get into it, how would they go about getting into something like this? It's very prestigious. It's very high end now, I have to say. So how would somebody with a passion get into something like that?
Well, there are auction houses, not too many in Ireland. You might do by word of mouth, or maybe ads on prewar.com, or some of the websites, but there is a couple of companies in the UK, and actually one of them is sponsoring us this year. That's Silverstone Auctions, and we're very grateful to them. But they would have auctions 4 or 5 times a year, and they would have, sometimes these cars would come up for sale, and that tends to, or else by word of mouth. That's the other the other way.
Well,
So
I'm excited for you.
Thank you very much
I hope you
indeed.
have a
Thank
great
you.
day. Have a
Yeah.
nice relaxed
Yeah.
evening this evening, and I hope you have good weather. I hope it stays like this,
Yes.
good weather.
Beautiful, yeah.
And I hope you enjoy the scenery in Cavan, and I hope everything
Thank you.
goes very well for your rally tomorrow.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
And thank you
Yeah.
once again for talking to us on Irish
That's
Web
fine.
TV and Cavan TV's News and Views. Now I'm going to have a word with the chairperson of the VCC, the Veteran Car Club Irish section, and that's Jude Connellon. And Jude, all the way from Kildare today, chairperson of the thing. You are delighted to get your trip on the road again after 2 years, aren't you?
We are absolutely delighted, and it's fantastic that it's actually Heritage Week. So you can see that, and we like to give an educational part of it, a historical part of it, and as well we bring people from all over the world. We have people here from America, Great Britain, Wales, Ireland.
It amazes me, these cars, as I was speaking to Laurence earlier, these cars are all over 100 years old.
Yes.
Most of them, and possibly most of them the original car, yes, of course.
Yes.
What kind of folk get interested in cars like that?
Well, it would seem that a lot of the people that actually get into the hobby, have definitely mechanical interest.
Yeah.
For
You would
instance,
need it.
well, yes. For instance, myself now, I started with model aeroplanes, and then I graduated then to motorcycles, and then after that, then I went into cars. So of course, the big thing is to get into to have a car that that's able to compete in the London to Brighton run.
Yeah.
So those cars have to be pre-1905.
Wow. So just the mind boggles. My goodness, where do you get a car like this?
Well, some people are lucky enough that their parents have been in the thing. That is one of the big things, is that to get some of these cars are quite expensive,
And expensive to maintain as well.
Yeah, but in most cases we do an awful lot of our own work. We'd have milling machines and lathes and all that, and we make parts. Then there are a lot of the clubs that have, in America and in England, there are one-make clubs, and they would have the wearing parts and the replaceable parts. They would get them made up.
So it would be a very dear hobby of people to have a car like this. To have, would somebody have one or two cars, or just stick with one car?
No, some people, would only have one or two, but it's a disease. A lot of people we have more cars. For instance,
Go ahead.
I would have 8 or 9 cars.
My goodness. Yeah, and it's very expensive. It's an expensive hobby as well.
Well, the real expense comes into the ones for the London to Brighton, and because of the age and the value, they tend to be a lot more expensive.
So,
and we actually, the VCC, the club dates the cars, so of course that makes the cars literally more expensive and keeps the value.
You often hear people say throughout remarks, oh, they don't make cars like they used to. Modern day cars are not made to last. Obviously these cars are made to last. Well, 100 years later, they are still roadworthy on our modern day roads and still able to go 100 kilometres a day.
Well, you're perfectly right. And they were designed, in fact, if you take in America, there wouldn't have been any roads there hardly at all.
Dirt roads, yeah.
Dirt roads, so they had to be very robust,
Yeah.
And that is the reason why that that they lasted,
Yeah.
And there was no electronics in them.
Which that's a good thing too, maybe.
Today, you can see.
What's it like to ride in one of those cars? Is it a rough ride in comparison to modern day cars?
No, well, it depends on the size. A lot of the London to Brighton cars will be very much smaller and would have a very short chassis. But then after you above that, which a lot of the cars here will have longer chassis, and some of those are extremely comfortable.
Extremely comfortable.
Yeah.
So my daft question in my daft head is, what kind of people what section of the community owned cars like that in those days?
Well,
wealthy people, obviously.
Yeah, well, you see,
very wealthy people, I would say.
Yeah, very wealthy people. Say, I have a Chalmers now, you know. It's an American car, it is 1912. No, that it's only the Vanderbilts and those people in America.
Bankers, yeah.
Bankers and all those that could afford those cars. Until an Irishman, Henry Ford, came along, and then he started to make the Model T, the Tin Lizzie, which, you know, everybody could afford, the ordinary person.
Henry Ford afforded everybody to be able to buy one of those cars.
Exactly.
So, where did you get your first car?
My first car, I got it from a friend of mine that had bought one. And I just said to him, I said, if you're ever selling that car, will you give me first call on it? And he did. And, you know, there was quite a bit of work that had to be done. But it was my first restoration, but I spent a lot of time on it, and I got it right.
Yeah. Well, I'm dying to have a look at it.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Once again, thank you for speaking to us, Jude, and enjoy your trip in Cavan.
Yeah, and you're more than welcome to come along and see us all. You know,
We will, thank you.
Because we also go with the local clubs, you know, we always have. Thanks very much.
That's the steam car. Left, yeah.